Very good morning to you and welcome to another Core Finance CEO interview. I'm Malcolm Graham Wood and it's a pleasure to welcome this morning Sara Edmonson, who's the new CEO of Coro Energy. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning to you and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. There's a lot new about Coro, so I think the best bet, I'll always ask anyway about an overview, but perhaps you could give the viewers an opportunity to tell us what Coro is and what it's become as a result of all these mergers and so on.
Oh, absolutely, because it's been a very interesting year. So Coro Energy currently trades under a company called Saffron Energy, and the ticker is SRON, So Saffron Energy was listed about 1 year ago, almost a year ago today. And when it was listed as a onshore gas production in northern Italy. It has gone through a sort of metamorphosis over the course of the last 5 months. So following the heads of agreement that was signed on October 5th, Saffron has gone through many changes, including there's a new board, a new management team, some cornerstone investors, a new strategy, clearly very important, and then last but not least, a name change. And all of this is going to be subject to shareholder approval, which will be in roughly 30 days' time.
Excellent. Now, I'm interested in the genesis of this sort of pan-European Southeast Asia vehicle, which it's going to be, as I understand it.
Yes.
It's a very broad geographical sweep there. What is it that knits all these assets together? In particular, whether it's a sort of profile of play type or growth prospects or whatever. So.
Absolutely. Well, and so you're referring to the strategy announcement that came out a few weeks ago,
indeed.
Where we effectively communicated that it will be a pan-Euro-Asia strategy and an initial growth strategy primarily in Southeast Asia. It's interesting. It's a popular question, and for good reason. I would say there's a growth strategy both on the European continent and the Asian continent. I definitely see that. So they're both oriented for growth. So we do see consolidation opportunities in Europe. But I don't think that those consolidation opportunities are forthcoming at the moment. So we're ready and waiting, and we see them out there on the horizon. But we don't see that as our initial growth success. Whereas we see Asia, on the other hand, and in particular Southeast Asia at the moment, as being effectively the kind of ready and waiting for us to go in and capture that value. So that's why we're kind of orientated in that direction. One thing that I have been mentioning to investors, which I think is important, is that because we have kind of the two pillars, and the Italian portfolio is actually relatively advanced, it's a full cycle E&P company in Italy. Some of the operating companies within that portfolio have been around for 20 years. I think that foundation really is going to uniquely position us when we grow elsewhere, specifically, for example, in Southeast Asia, because it gives us substance. Whereas many other companies go in, they might have some funding, they might have a really good management team, but they don't have the track record. But when you're moving into Southeast Asia, we're going to have to go in and acquire credentials and qualification to acquire blocks. We're going in with a company that effectively has a background in a 20-year, track record on, health, safety, environmental compliance, and
which is good. But as you make acquisitions in Southeast Asia, I guess that it will become a smaller part.
Absolutely.
So let's turn to Southeast Asia. I'm very keen to drill down a little bit into what you might be looking at. Obviously, I'm interested to find out what you find so attractive about the region. All sorts of questions come up. Are we playing oil or gas? Are we exploration or production, onshore, offshore? Give us some idea of what you're looking at the moment.
Okay, well, there's a couple questions in there, isn't there? So it's
10, I think.
Probably 10. So definitely. It's transformational exploration. That's the end game. I would say onshore or very shallow offshore, so 3 to 5 meters of water depth, like large drilling. And primarily that's because it really will fit in. We're still a micro cap, so the ambition is to be a mid cap very soon, but for the moment we're going to be focusing on work programs that would fit our budget. What's really drawing us, I think, more than anything else, the reason we find it so attractive is, in the first instance, there are substantial undiscovered reserves. So if you look at BP's statistical review of world energy, or even the IEA, there's a general consensus that in terms of residual reserves as well as undiscovered volumes, Southeast Asia is actually one of the leading parts of the world. Yeah. So more than anything else, that is what drew us to that particular area. But then as we looked at that area and we said, effectively, if we're in the game of transformational exploration, we have to make sure there's the raw material. So that, we checked the box on that one. But we needed to make sure that it was also in an area where we could effectively, either ourselves or whoever bought the portfolio in a few years' time, can easily commercialize that gas. Right. So we wanted to make sure that the market fundamentals were there. And so similar to other companies that James and Marco and Fiona work on, like in Argentina or Morocco, you've got the premium pricing that ranges from $6 to $8 per MCF. You've got fantastic infrastructure already in place across the region, through LNG plants, through gas-powered plants, through a whole pipeline of networks. And then you've got, probably even again more importantly, the macroeconomic dynamics where consumption is growing rapidly, the population is growing rapidly, and so we see that the demographics are going to underpin that growth. But the reserve replacement is a real issue. And so you see that domestic production has decreased significantly, and they have started to import for the very first time oil a few years ago, and gas is expected to start. They will be net importers in 2 years' time.
Now that's excellent. It's gas, it's onshore, it's exploration. I had another question later on about infrastructure and governments and price, but you pretty much ticked all the boxes there. There's good local infrastructure, the price is going to be high. So what countries are we talking about? Have we narrowed it down to a certain number of countries?
I would definitely emphasize that we are a regional player. So it's not just going to be one country. Clearly, we need to move in very smart, deliberate steps, though, in order to execute that strategy. And I think the most obvious first entry would be Indonesia. Yeah. And that is primarily because if you just look at residual reserves, we're looking at over 100 TCF of gas. And we're primarily, one of the questions was probably, is it gas or oil? We have a preference for gas. Yeah. The residual reserves are over 100 TCF, and in terms of what is expected with undiscovered resources, we're looking just north of 50 TCF. Good. So Indonesia being kind of the primary driver, again, with that raw materials, I think that's going to be our first focus.
Excellent. So what do you think the speed of progress is like to be? I mean, obviously, today during your launch and your presentation, you're going to have a lot of shareholders saying, how long is this going to take? When do you think we might wait? When might we see an announcement on your first one or two deals?
Very good questions as well. Clearly, I mean, we're aiming for lightning speed. We want to be quick, and we've done a lot of the legwork already, so that from day one, the moment we get shareholder approval, we are Coro Energy, and the strategy is approved, we will effectively have the mandate to act. So we've been behind the scenes, working up what we can. And I think, ultimately the objective is to try, 2018 will be focused on building our portfolio. So we would look to close on 1 or 2 deals within, the next 12 months. And then 2019 maybe more focused on executing the work program that's going to be, the follow-on to those.
Excellent. That seems to be, I'm not surprised that you're moving so quickly. So I guess that, as part of the question that you've almost already answered, you're receiving support from the local governments, and the regulatory regimes there are reasonably swift. I mean, historically, with sound, for example, I've said that Italy was slow and Morocco is very fast. And I get the impression that the regimes down in that part of the world are reasonably favourable.
I think I would definitely say that they are favourable, and it's primarily driven by need. I mean, there are these huge reserves and resources that are there and that are ultimately accessible. However, there's a lot of legwork that needs to go into to developing those. You've got the population is growing, the consumption is growing, and governments are struggling effectively to kind of find the balance. So the government mandates are clearly orientated towards promoting foreign direct investment in particular, and promoting the oil and gas industry. Each country is very different, though, I think, in terms of speed. I think that there's going to be some that we'll find are a lot quicker, and others that are a little bit more, more difficult. But at the same time, I think we're prepared for that, and I think that there are ways that you can effectively, circumvent some of that risk. By maybe moving into things that are already drill ready, or relatively advanced on the geoscience stage. So I think that we can try and find and balance the timing issues and expectations.
Good. Now, one of those things, the next question is about the board and how it's structured and the appointments and everything else. But obviously, leading on from that last question, the first one is that today's appointment means that you've got a very strong Indonesian player on the board. So talk to me about him and how he's going to affect business, because I know historically and family-wise he's got fantastic contacts there. And then let's talk about the rest of the board and how it fits in. So
okay. Well, Ilham, who was appointed this morning, is it's somebody that James has known since the Sound Oil days.
Right.
So when Sound Oil was back in Indonesia. In fact, Ilham was on the board of Sound, I think, for many years, and stepped down when they started moving into the more Italian, Morocco, Mediterranean focused. So we're very excited to have him as part of the board and as a core member of the Coro Energy team. He's a very prominent businessman, and he's very well respected in the investment and business community. He is, of course, the son of the former president, and a very important president, the one that ultimately brought Indonesia into democracy. So he's very well received, and actually what's also very important, he's really not perceived by the Indonesian public as an association with one party or the other. It's truly very, he's really kind of known for his, more for his business skills, I think, than for his political affiliation.
That's very good. Now the rest of the board, talk us through who else you've got.
Well, we've got Fiona, who's clearly driving the technical side. Fiona's fantastic. You know her obviously very well. She's somewhat of a hero to me, being the top-notch executive that she is, but also very technically strong. Clearly, there's James Parsons, who again has that background experience with Indonesia, so that's been critical to us as we've kind of guided the preparatory activities. Marco Fumagalli is somebody that actually I've only recently met, but have really enjoyed working with him for the past couple of months. He's very sound. He clearly has those strong financial skills that I think are going to be able to better orientate us as we then need to be funding ourselves in the future.
And you've got a new CFO as well.
We've got a fantastic CFO, Andrew Denon, who I also have very much enjoyed working with over the last couple of months. So Andrew brings a lot of unique experience, but really he's got fantastic relationships. He's known Marco Fumagalli and Continental and CIP, Merchant Capital, or what was prior to CIP Merchant Capital, for many, many years, as well as some of the other institutions that came in. So and those relationships are clearly going to be critical to us going forward. So. Yep.
Good. I'll come back to Marco in a minute because I want to ask about the shareholders and so on. But first of all, I'd love to know about your financing. So what's the balance sheet look like? How much you've got on board now that you've been financed, and any debt and that sort of thing? So
sure.
Tell us about the finances.
Well, the finances are looking really good. They're looking really good. We've raised 14 million with primarily as Continental as our cornerstone, and then we've got some other institutions. 14 million pounds that were raised. That's conditional to shareholder approval again, which we expect in about 30 days' time. There's no debt, so actually we've kind of gone in with a little bit of a different model from some other companies that James and Fiona have been working on. So we're really starting off in a very advantaged position, I think, at this point.
And this is where we come back to Marco Fumagalli, who is your cornerstone investor.
Yes.
And I understand that this is the first, as a quoted entity, this is his first big investment, which is exciting.
Yep.
And of course, you've had an open offer for retail investors as well.
Well, so. We've just announced that. Yes. So it's all of the details are going to be in the admission document. But yes, the intention is to ultimately bring on some of the investors at the same level as the cornerstones have effectively invested in.
Good. So your sister companies, Sound and Echo, have put the retail shareholders right at the front of and the heart of everything that they do. can I assume that this is going to be something similar in Coro?
Absolutely.
Coro.
Coro, absolutely. Yes, we are private investor centric. I think that James has really found a way to navigate the communication channels to ensure that everybody really feels engaged, which has probably been some of the obstacles that other companies have found in the past. And so we tend to we have every intention of following on with that. And
I'm not surprised because you've got a big launch this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so a few of those people will be with us tonight at the launch. I'm very much looking forward to that. And of course, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but presumably you'll follow the sound and echo policy of inviting your shareholders and investors out to come and see you, whether it's you're in the Southeast Asia.
Absolutely. So Southeast Asia is very far away, but it's a plane ride, and
yes.
so. I absolutely would think so. Again, I mean, we will do everything that is within reason in our power to make sure that shareholders feel engaged.
Yeah.
And the only I've gotten a lot of questions about that actually, and everyone's asking me when.
Yeah.
I think that that is going to be centered around something exciting, like a drill program or maybe some seismic shooting or something of that nature. But absolutely, we will make sure that investors are invited. Yeah.
Good. Well, we've gone through a lot. The time is running out a little bit. We've gone through pretty much everything that Coro stands for at the moment. What I always do as we get towards the end is ask my victim to just give me an idea for yourself how you'd like to see Coro in, say, a year's time. What do you think is going to your plans are? Summing up all the things that we've talked about today, how would you like to see Coro in a year's time?
Yeah, also a very good question. I suppose I would answer it by saying what I see in 12 years' time is taking the strategy in paper that we have today and making it strategy in action. Yeah. We need a footprint in Southeast Asia, ideally in more than one country, and the idea would be we need to have acreage under our belt that's going to ultimately lead to that transformational exploration play. Yeah. So it's about building a portfolio in Southeast Asia, in my opinion, over the next 12 months, and that's where I would like to see. I would also unabashedly admit that I would like to see this company, and my personal ambition is to see this company grow from a micro-cap to a mid-cap, similar to what James has done with Sound so very successfully. Yeah. And so I think in about 1 year's time, I will be able to gauge my performance based on also where we are, and based, obviously, that being underpinned by acquisitions and growth, again, over the next 12 months. But I would like to see us, even our market capitalization in a very different place.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like it's a really exciting story.
Yes.
Sara, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
My pleasure, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to have met with and interviewed Sara Edmonson, the CEO of Coro Energy, and I look forward to seeing you again on Core Finance CEO interviews again soon. Thank you very much.